Good afternoon. We've gathered today to honour the memory and give thanks for the life of Radiance Mary West, née Koenig, known as Mary. My name is Wendy Rutchins, and in my capacity as a civil celebrant, I will be leading the proceedings today on behalf of Mary's family and Hanley Funeral Services. Following this service, we will proceed to the Leongatha Cemetery for a short service and committal. I'd like to welcome those who are not able to be in attendance today and who are watching this service via the live stream. We're glad you're able to be part of this celebration and commemoration. Mary never liked to fuss. She lived a modest, quiet life, maintaining strong friendships and genuine relationships with those around her. Mary lived in this district her whole life, raised at Berries Creek and Mardan. Robert remembers her talking about walking to school through the paddocks in her bare feet. This would be unimaginable to children and families these days. Mary's 96 years are testament that it didn't do her any harm, and her sister Alwyn also lived to a great age. Mary lived her entire married life in Leongatha, most of it in the same house. I feel sure that Rob will describe the house and Douglas Court, which was named after Mary's brother, in some detail later in this service, as both the house and the court were very significant to Mary and Jack. Mary was never one to seek the spotlight and was very happy to quietly fit in wherever she was. She had a range of talents, from designing her own home to accomplished seamstress. This was quite remarkable in that era that saw women mostly just supporting their husbands, without the opportunity to develop their own skill set. Roberta recalls Mary sewing all her own clothes and many lovely outfits for her girls, Christy and Lisa, Mary's granddaughters. What wonderful memories are forged during those times spent together. Unfortunately, Jack died in 2018, although Mary was well supported by her family and friends, particularly those in Douglas Court. She finally needed a higher level of assistance, and she spent the last period of her life at Chapara Aged Care in Murby North. She was very happy there, and I would like to share a tribute from Nat, the diversional therapist, which was sent to Rob following Mary's passing. Dear Rob and Roberta, I just wanted to send you my condolences. Your mum was a beautiful lady. I am so honoured to have had the pleasure of meeting her and being able to make her time with us as enjoyable as possible. Mary loved her bus trips, and I'm so pleased that we got to go to Leongatha a few weeks ago and Mary got to see her house again. We continued back to Murby North via Berries Creek, and Mary told everyone where she lived and walking to school from the top of the hill. I have thoroughly enjoyed Mary's company and loved watching her complete her jigsaws. She was always so grateful for everything that anyone did for her. I am just sorry I didn't get more bus trips in due to COVID. Mary loved her family and missed your dad a lot. It was nice to spend time with her talking about her past, you and your family. Thanks, Paul. I cannot tell you how proud she was of you and your family. I will miss your mum. She was a true lady and a beautiful person. Thank you for sharing her with us in her last years. What a wonderful tribute. Mary's family would like to sincerely thank Chapara and all the staff there for the absolutely outstanding care that she received. Mary loved the bingo and the bus trips prior to COVID. The staff would even link Mary with her sister Alwyn, who was in care at Foster, via FaceTime every Tuesday. So not only could they chat to one another, but they could see one another as well. The level of care was exemplary. I'd like to call on Rob now, please, to share Mary's eulogy.
Okay, we'll see how this goes. Radiance Mary Koenig, my mum, was born on the 8th of March 1925 in Leongatha to Henry Richard Koenig and Hilda Maud Steele. Henry farmed a property at Kernicks Road, Berries Creek, overlooking the small township of Berries Creek, where Mum, her older sister Elwyn, and her younger brother Douglas attended school. Mum reminisced about how they walked through the paddocks down the hill to school each day throughout the year, looking out for tiger snakes in summer when they crossed the Berries Creek via a fallen tree, and braved the frosts and flooded creek in winter, occasionally being forced to walk home via the long way, as Mum called it, via the highway up the hill until they got round to Kernicks Road again. Mum later attended high school for some years in Leongatha until she commenced her training as a dressmaker under the tutorage of several local dressmakers. She eventually started work at the blouse factory and worked with a lot of local girls there over many years. The blouse factory, I don't know if you know it, was situated under Hayes' Jewellers, right in the centre of town. Mum worked there for a long time. My mother was an active tennis player, and in her words, quite good. She had an active social life and also played badminton at the Fire Brigade Hall. This is where she met my father, Jack West, a motor mechanic who worked for Maxted and Dean's garage in Bear Street. They courted for some time, and Dad called to pick her up for badminton nights with a local fire engine. Occasionally he used to sound a siren at the front gate just to make his announcement that he had arrived. They married in 1949 and commenced building a home at 42 Jeffrey Street, Leongatha, on a block that was gifted to Mum from her father Henry. Mum drew up the plans for the house while Dad, with a few of his mates, handmade all the bricks. They actually made enough bricks for 6 or 7 houses which were built throughout the town, and each of the boys took up one of the houses. It was a standard 3-bedroom house, small by today's standards. Hang on, I'll turn the page. I'm not very good at this. With rendered brickwork and a tile roof, and they lived in it all their married lives until Dad passed, and then Mum moved on to Chapara. I was born before the house was completed, and before then we lived in a flat next door to Dad's mother in Roughhead Street. Dad's father was a member of the butter factory, so it was one of the butter factory houses. Mum and Dad's house was across the court from her mother and father. That's Douglas Court, which was named after Mum's brother, younger brother, Douglas, who was killed in a motor accident in 1950. She was quite content there. Your mother's across the road, everything that you need is there. A sister built a house just down the street for some years, and they lived merrily along their way, if you like. Mum continued with her dressmaking from home, as well as returning to work at the blouse factory for a time. She travelled to work each day by push bike. She really liked riding the bike. It was one of her favourite times. She later did piecework from home for the blouse factory with an industrial sewing machine that was set up in the bedroom because the house was quite small by today's standards. Most of my clothing in my early years was made by Mum. Later, Mum made curtains for REPs in Cove to order. She then made clothes for her granddaughters, Christy and Lisa, and for all their dolls. Where am I? Growing up, I can remember our Sunday family drives throughout the countryside. Dad shooting a few rabbits for the pot, that supplemented next week's food, while Mum cooking it up in my favourite meal, which was parsley batter, one of my favourites. She became a homebody supporting Dad when he left Maxted and Dean's after it closed, and he ran the business from home. And they ran the business out of the backyard, if you like, until he retired. I think the computer age caught up with him. Mum was a keen gardener with green fingers, as demonstrated by her home garden. Anybody that's been there, there's plenty of garden. Dad would often take small cuttings or seeds when they were away travelling, and Mum seemed to be always able to grow them. She could get anything to grow. Later in life, they both liked to travel and took a number of bus tours around Australia with Probus, They also caravanned up the east coast until Dad had a heart turn, and that sort of put paid to the future caravanning. I can remember as a child playing at my nana's, which was just across the road, with my cousins, when a snake appeared from under the shed or the house, I don't remember which, and Mum rushed out in a flash and had its head off in an instant with a shovel. She had no fear of snakes. She'd seen so many when she was going to school at Berries Creek. She was always there to pick me up when I fell or needed support. She was quiet, unassuming, but gentle, but forceful when she thought it was needed. I also remember she was a good hand with the jug cord if I played up, or the apple swish. She used to lay into me a bit. But she was my mum, and I loved her, and I already miss her. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Robin. Now, Christy is going to speak on behalf of the two granddaughters.
Thank you. As you've heard, our grandma was a special lady. She was kind, genuine, and always put herself before others. She was peacefully quiet, no fuss, and always so happy to see us. When I think of her now, I see her at the kitchen bench with a mug of tea, pulling out a container of baked treats. She always had something she'd made on hand. She'd be inquiring about what we'd been up to and gently smiling as we answered. Her yo-yos were legendary. A tin of yo-yos was all we ever wanted for Christmas. And until recently, she always made the pudding at Christmas too. I loved seeing her proudly bring it in and pop it in the pot to boil, and later when she'd humbly serve it, always saying that she was surprised that it turned out. She was an incredible seamstress too. She told me a couple of stories in the last few years of her jobs that Dad just spoke about. She was proud of her accomplishments and made many friends there. She genuinely made almost all of her own clothes, and when Lisa and I were kids, she lovingly made us a lot of clothes too. She was also a skilled knitter, making us many woolen jumpers. We had so many jumpers that she made us that we had dedicated shelves in our wardrobe just for them. We'd spent a week each school holidays for many years with Grandma and Granddad. There was always a jigsaw puzzle to work on for hours, freshly made chocolate custard for dessert, lots of snakes and ladders to play, and drives through the countryside. We'd walk to the main street here in Leongatha with Grandma, looking in a couple of shops before doing the grocery shopping. Somehow Grandad magically knew what time to pick us up, no matter how long it took. Like Grandad, Grandma always had incredible green thumbs. She could grow anything, turning a seed, a leaf or a stick into a beautiful healthy plant with seemingly no effort. She adored her garden. It was always perfectly manicured, and she could always be found sweeping the paths. Lisa and I loved playing in that garden as kids, searching for fairies, spying on the garden gnomes, and admiring the beautiful flowers. We're so grateful for all these memories and more. She'll be forever in our hearts. Rest in peace.
Thanks very much, Christy. It's a great contribution. I'd like to pause now to quietly reflect on Mary's life while we watch a photo presentation. Thank you. Many thanks to the family for putting together that wonderful display. While I am thanking people, although Rob has already mentioned the people in Douglas Court, he said Mary could not have lived independently as long as she did anywhere else. Your support and constant backup made all the difference to her ability to stay in her own home. So thank you again. Rob would also like to acknowledge the support, love and kindness that Roberta freely gave to Mary. It's very much appreciated. Also to be acknowledged is the Leongatha RSL. They kindly provided support, especially by inviting Mary and providing her with transport to regular RSL lunches. They also organised Mary's lawn to be mowed. She was very proud of her garden while she was staying at the nursing home, and this was a great help to Rob. As we come to the end of this service, we are reminded that Mary is not lost to you while you continue to remember her. Remember her as a loyal friend. Remember her as a reliable neighbour. Remember her for her generosity. Remember her for her modest approach to life. Remember her for her love for her family. As we say goodbye, remember that Mary's journey is one that we must all take. Her life was one of purpose and fulfilment, and one that you can feel proud of. These words were found in the pocket of an unknown soldier during World War I. They may help you to move on in your own journey of sorrow and grief. Miss me, but let me go. Now I've come to the end of the road, and the sun has set me free. I want no rights in a gloom-filled room. Why cry for a soul set free? Miss me a little, but not too long, and not with a head bowed low. Remember the life that once we shared. Miss me, but let me go. For this is a journey that we must all take, and each must go alone. It's all a part of the Master's plan, a step on the road to home. When you are lonely and sick at heart, go to the friends we know, and bury your sorrow in doing good deeds. Miss me, but let me go. We're going to now quietly proceed to the Leongatha Cemetery, where we will conclude this service. Thank you.